Buzz strokes are perhaps the single most difficult technique to master on the snare drum. Previously, I have discussed the technical aspects required to execute buzz strokes. I'm not going to repeat the concepts in that video here today, although I will draw upon them. Instead, I have been motivated to make this video by a lesson I had with a student recently. This student in particular was feeling very dismayed, very frustrated with his own buzz strokes, and he observed, perhaps very kindly, that when I was demonstrating my buzz rolls, I seemed to be barely moving, yet effortlessly achieving a smooth buzz roll. The discussion that ensued and the analysis we conducted of his own technique afterwards led to me sharing some concepts with him that I think I've only really intellectualized recently, so I thought I would share those with you here today. In order to achieve a strong buzz roll, aside from the technical aspects that I have discussed previously, we need to understand the function of a buzz roll. Ultimately, the function of a buzz roll, regardless of how and where it is applied, is to achieve a sense of sustain. If we consider an instrument like a piano, when we press a key, the note produced will last for as long as we hold the key. The longer we hold the key, the longer the sound will sustain. On a drum, this doesn't occur. If I hold the stick down on the drum after playing it, the sound produced is no longer than if I'd have let the stick rebound naturally. In fact, it's probably slightly shorter because holding the stick in position kills the vibration on the head. So buzz rolls were developed to counter this. They allow us the chance to produce a sustained effect. We can't produce a perfect sustain, but a decent buzz roll essentially sounds like a smooth, unbroken sound. And that is what we want to achieve. Now, in order to achieve the sense of sustain, we need to achieve duration with each of our individual buzz strokes. And this is something my student had picked up on. What I was doing was playing a very long duration buzz on each hand. And in so doing, it allows me to produce a buzz roll that sounds smooth and unbroken, achieves that sustained effect, but I'm not actually moving very fast at all. Something like this. Now, if I remove the buzz strokes, I'm only playing at this speed. By no account is that a fast single stroke roll, but by achieving a long duration buzz stroke on each of those strokes, it is long enough to produce that sustained effect. So when we practice our buzz strokes, and let's differentiate here between buzz strokes and buzz rolls, we want each individual buzz stroke to have the longest possible duration within the context in which we are playing it. We want to find that balance between too tight and uncontrolled to produce a maximum duration. Those long duration buzz strokes will blend together seamlessly to produce a smooth, unbroken, sustained buzz roll. Now, when we analysed my student's technique, what we found was he was essentially playing buzz strokes that were too short. One was finishing before the other was starting, something like this. So even though he was trying to play faster and faster, and he had the basis of a buzz roll beginning, they were simply too short, they were too tight. He wasn't achieving that sense of duration that allowed them to blend together seamlessly. As I've stated, if the duration is long enough, the second stroke will begin while the first stroke is still finishing. Now, with that happening, I don't need to speed up much at all in terms of my rate of mechanical movement for those strokes to blend together into a seamless sustain. Again, if I remove the buzz strokes, you can hear the buzz roll effect being created despite the relative slow speed with which I'm actually moving. So how do we practice this? Well, first of all, we need to make sure we are familiar with the technical aspects required to execute a buzz stroke. I've talked about those before. It essentially comes down to a strong but relaxed fulcrum. We don't want to be tense and tight here, but we need enough strength to produce the buzz. Now, the duration is going to come about by the amount of pressure we apply. I'm hesitant to use the word pressure because it implies tension. We don't want tension here. We need strength, control. But nevertheless, if I squeeze very tightly, you can hear the buzz roll there. The buzz stroke is produced, but it is too tight. The duration is very short. If I squeeze too loosely, it's uncontrolled. That stick is flailing about in my hand. If I get it right, if I have just the right amount of relaxation, of looseness, but retaining just the right amount of strength and control, I can achieve a buzz stroke with the longest duration before the second one occurs. And what I mean by that is the next stroke occurs just before the previous one finishes, as opposed to something like this. So what we can do is start to experiment and follow this scale between very tight at one end and very loose at the other, and change our grip and see whereabouts we fall on that scale. We can tighten our grip and move towards the tighter end, or we can loosen our grip and move towards the looser end. And what we're essentially doing here is familiarizing ourselves with the technique. We are familiarizing ourselves with what our hands do and how that affects the sticks. Now, when we have found that right balancing point between control and looseness, relaxation and strength, we can start to alternate. Now at this stage, we have a good degree of duration on each stroke, but the rhythmic rate is simply too slow. Those strokes are too far apart, despite my best efforts to eke out as much duration as I can from each stroke. So from there, we gradually increase the speed of our single stroke roll until those strokes are seamlessly blending together. Which is about there. Now, once again, if I remove the buzz strokes, you can see I'm not playing particularly fast at all. I'm playing at least a slow to medium single stroke roll. So our whole entire focus here needs to be on the duration and the control of the buzz within each individual buzz stroke. As I've said, when we analysed my students, he was simply too tight. The buzz strokes were too short. So despite his best efforts and his ability to actually achieve quite a nice buzz stroke on each hand, because they were too short, one finished before the other began, and he never achieved that sense of sustain. Over the next few lessons, as he worked on this, we were able to loosen up his technique so that he didn't need to play any faster. He was just generating a longer duration of buzz stroke for each hand, and suddenly, not miraculously, but suddenly, his buzz roll sounded a lot more coherent, a lot more smooth, a lot more sustained, which is of course what we're going for here. So what I would suggest is that you practice these to a metronome and you vary the subdivision. Set the metronome to a steady tempo and begin with a comfortable subdivision like 16th notes. So we're feeling that 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, 3 E-ander, 4 E-ander, and explore the buzz strokes within that speed. 3 E-ander, 4 E-ander. We can try playing very tight, short buzz strokes. Or we can try and lengthen those as much as we can. And like I did previously with one hand, I'm going up and down the scale from the very tight to the very loose and trying to find that perfect balancing point. Now, at some point, once we have found that balancing point, like I demonstrated a moment ago, we will find that the rhythmic rate generated by the single strokes is simply too slow. So rather than increase the tempo on the metronome, increase the subdivision instead. So currently 1E under, 2E under, 3E under, 4E under, we've got a 4-note subdivision, essentially 16th notes. We can increase that to 16th note quintuplets, a 5-note subdivision, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see what that does to our buzz stroke. Let's jump that up to 6s now, a sextuple subdivision. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And probably round about there, I'm not sure what tempo I was at, but the sextuple subdivision was producing that sustained buzz roll that we require. And there we start to develop a real deep familiarity with how what we do with our hands, what we do with our fulcrum affects the sticks, and in turn affects the duration and the quality of our buzz roll overall. So I'll leave that there. I don't want to labour the point. I just wanted to share this concept of duration with you and give you something to think about as to how it might apply to your own buzz rolls. If you are brand new to buzz rolls, you first of all need to develop the ability to produce consistent, persistent buzz strokes on each hand, which is something I addressed in my previous video. If you can do that, but you are still not achieving a smooth, sustained buzz roll, it might be the duration that you want to consider. It's finding that point of control, that point of balance between too tight and too loose, and achieving the maximum controlled duration with each stroke that allows them to seamlessly blend together. The second buzz stroke should begin before the first buzz stroke has finished. If that doesn't happen, there's going to be an audible gap, a pause, a jolt within our buzz roll that's going to stop it sounding the way we want it to sound. Remember, buzz rolls are all about sustain. So think in terms of duration and try to sustain each buzz stroke for as long as you can. And hopefully that will start to bring them all together to create a smooth, coherent buzz roll. Thank you very much. I hope that's given you a lot to think about. See you on the next one.